Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Monthly training, full access to all our business resources, and a private member forum powered by Slack. Come build a better business with hundreds of your fellow entrepreneur architects and me inside EntreArchitect membership. Enroll now free for 30 days at EntreArchitect.com. My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to EntreArchitect Podcast, where I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. This is episode 249, and this week I'm with NCARB CEO Michael Armstrong, and I asked, how does NCARB serve the small firm architect? This episode of EntreArchitect Podcast is supported by our platform sponsors, ARCAT, the online resource delivering quality building material information, CAD details, BIM, specifications, and so much more at arcat.com. Freshbooks, the cloud-based accounting software that makes running your small firm easy, fast, and secure. Spend less time on accounting and more time doing the work that you love. And Revit Rocketship. Learn Revit the fast and easy way with a powerful online course developed by the guys over at F9 Productions. From first-time users to seasoned pros, Revit Rocketship will show you how. Michael Armstrong, welcome to EntreArchitect Podcast.
Great to be here.
It's good to have you here. Let me tell anybody who may not know who you are. Michael is the Chief Executive Officer at National Council of Architectural Registration Boards. We also know that organization as NCARB. And prior to joining NCARB in 2011, Mike held senior positions at the International Code Council, the ICF International, at FEMA, and at the Colorado Governor's Office of Energy Conservation. He began his career with 10 years as an assistant city attorney specializing in land use, zoning and planning, code enforcement, historic preservation, all those goodies. And recently, NCARB published a report called NCARB by the Numbers. And today we're going to dive deep into those facts and figures. I don't know how deep, but we're going to dive into those facts and figures, learn through that report, and how that report impacts our community of small firm entrepreneur architects. But before we go there, I want Michael to tell us his story, his origin story. So Michael, can you go back to where you discovered your purpose and your passion and share your story of that journey to where you find yourself today at NCARB?
Well, thank you. And also thank you for that introduction. You sort of gave a nice thumbnail sketch of my career path, which is confusing to a lot of people because I started my undergraduate work in journalism and wrote for several newspapers. Then I went to law school and practiced law for 10 years. Then I went into political work for a while, followed by stints in state and federal government, then ended up in the private sector, and then from there into the nonprofit community, and now at NCARB. So it's a bit of a zigzag. I think one of the consistent themes in my career path has been the safety of the built environment. That's probably a consistency, starting with acting as an assistant city attorney, writing legislation, advising boards and commissions, prosecuting cases, into creating public policy at the state and federal level around areas ranging from energy conservation to disaster mitigation, and then consulting for local governments on strategic planning around emergency management and homeland security, and then around the code community with the International Code Council. I always had a focus on the built environment, and of course, architects were frequently part of that conversation. And I think over time, certainly as I was exposed to different approaches to building design and the utility of buildings, my admiration for and interest in architecture just increased exponentially. And quite frankly, I found it refreshing to move more directly into a conversation with architects. After working with emergency managers and code officials, I appreciated the sophistication and the blend of art and science that architects bring to the table. So I found it to be a very stimulating experience that continues into today.
Great. I think most listeners and most of our community are architect owners, mostly small firm architects. And I think most people know what NCARB is. Could you sort of just give us a really quick snapshot of what NCARB is and how it fits in the profession?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure. And I think sometimes the basic confusion that people have, especially emerging professionals, is that there's a clear distinction between licensure and what NCARB does for the state boards versus the profession writ large, which is what AIA and other membership societies address. So NCARB itself is a nonprofit organization that was created by all the state licensing boards so that the states could have a more uniform approach to regulating licensure, which then in turn allows the architect profession to be more mobile across state boundaries. There is no national license. And people get frustrated. They say, why can't we just take one exam and just be licensed everywhere? Well, the U.S. Constitution clearly states that all powers that are not specifically given to the federal government devolve to the state governments. So licensure is not called out as a federal authority in our Constitution. Therefore, it is a state authority. However, almost 100 years ago, 13 state licensing boards got together and said, you know what, we better have some uniformity from state to state, or else we aren't going to be able to practice with ease across state boundaries. So we were created in 1919 to facilitate mobility in a way that's consistently rigorous and as uniform as possible. We also aren't the people that issue the license. That's another confusion point people have. We do not have legal authority. We have advisory authority. So we create what I call the licensure toolkit. We deliver that toolkit to every state and U.S. jurisdiction, and they decide which of the NCARB tools they wish to use. So every jurisdiction uses the NCARB exam called the ARE. All jurisdictions use some variation on the NCARB model for the experience requirement, referred to as the AXP or the Architectural Experience Program, which for some of you more mature architects, that's the successor program to the IDP. IDP doesn't exist anymore. And then we also have an education standard that addresses minimally what type of education is necessary to be certified after you get a license by NCARB so you can be mobile across state boundaries. So these 3 E's of education, experience, and examination are the building blocks for the licensure path that we help facilitate on behalf of state and jurisdictional government.
I'm glad I asked that question because that's great. I mean, I didn't know all of that, and I'm sure that the listeners didn't know all of that.
Right.
And so I appreciate you jumping into that a little bit.
Sure.
So NCARB by the numbers. It's a report that you do every year, and it sort of looks at the profession in terms of statistics. Can you sort of tell us what it is in more detail, and then we'll get into some of the information that's inside the report?
Sure. I think like a lot of nonprofit organizations in the 21st century, we're becoming more and more of an information management organization. Much of what we do is collect and manage and distribute data. And so if we're doing all this data collection and storage for the licensure candidate through recording their hours and recording their test scores, and through licensed architects keeping their records current so that they can get an NCARB certificate to be mobile, it stands to reason that we can act as a thought leader in the national conversation about the profession in terms of trends. And so NCARB by the numbers takes a historic multi-year look at various trends around people moving into licensure and the profession post-licensure. So whether it's time to licensure from the time one enrolls in school to the number of people in the pipeline, to diversity issues regarding women and underrepresented groups. There's a lot of curiosity by national media, by the federal government, by other interest groups, including the AIA, on what these numbers could reveal. So we feel like we're doing a service for the profession, for the community, and also for our individual licensing boards. They want to know how people going through the licensure process in their state compare to national averages. So we also have a dashboard in this book that jurisdiction by jurisdiction compares the performance of a state vis-a-vis national averages in 4 different data sets. So it's a learning tool. It's an educational tool for a variety of readers inside and outside the architect community.
Yeah, and I think individual architects will be very interested in it as well. As well as those big organizations. I think even our community of small firm architects, it's a really interesting document to go in there and see a snapshot of our profession. Look at the specific numbers, look at the trends and how they're trending, look at the number of architects that are coming into the profession and the number of architects that are leaving the profession.
Right.
It's all in there. So it's a very valuable document.
Well, I think one thing I've noticed is that there's a lot of anecdotal information and maybe even some urban myths out there about what's happening with the profession. Having hard data can help dispel some of those myths and course correct some of the conversation. And I would also add in terms of small firms that the majority of architects practice in smaller firms. The majority of firms are smaller firms. And that's probably a better way to say it. Many of our volunteers that serve on state licensing boards seem to come from smaller firms. I think they're perhaps in a place in their career where they have started to transition toward retirement. They feel like it's a time in their career where they can give back to the profession. And what I see in terms of our volunteer community, and we have hundreds of volunteers from around the country, I would say a majority are from small firms. So we definitely have that point of view when we create policy.
Is the data in the report broken down by firm size? Do you have any sort of idea of, because it has totals of architects, but do you sort of know who those architects are?
We don't. A lot of our data relates to the emerging professional, and many of those folks aren't really associated permanently with a firm. Post-licensure, the small firm versus large firm distinction is something that the AIA actually looks at. They have, as you may know, their roundtables for both small and large firms. We don't really ask a lot of data questions. We do sometimes inquire as to firm origin when we are doing samples and surveys to make sure we have a diversity of opinion, but it's more designed as a check on making sure our data is representative. It isn't really a point of view that we track post-licensure.
In the big picture, in terms of the state of licensure for architects, what are the trends? Are we getting bigger or are we getting smaller?
Well, one of the concerns that's been expressed out there repeatedly is that the rate at which baby boomers are retiring doesn't match the rate of people coming into the profession. We don't find that to be a true statement. First of all, baby boomers aren't all retiring at the same time, and they tend to be working longer. So that mass exodus has not come to pass. And
the baby boomers I know that are architects have no plan on retiring.
Right. And so that's sort of a false assumption. And then it's interesting, while enrollment in architecture schools is lower than it was 10 years ago, the number of schools is higher, and the percent of graduates staying into licensure is also higher. So the profession is getting a larger share of a smaller pool, if that makes sense. So the sum result is about the same. It's about constant. In fact, our pipeline for several years now in terms of people testing for the exam has been at record levels. So we tend to be a little more optimistic about the future of the profession than perhaps some others are. But I can share with you some specific findings that you might find compelling, if you'd like. Yeah,
absolutely.
In our most recent edition of NCARB by the Numbers is a calendar year snapshot. So we're talking about data now that is roughly 10 months old. So the most recent publication covers January 1st through December 31st of 2017. Our next publication will issue next June. However, we are working on having a more immediate online version of NCARB by the Numbers that will update our statistics on a more frequent basis throughout the year. And we hope to have that up and running, I hope, by early next year or next spring. But for now, we'll deal with 2017 numbers.
Okay.
So in 2017, we had a record number of candidates that completed both their experience requirement and their exam requirement. So we had 5,200 individuals that got all the way through both AXP and ARE in 2017, and that's a record. Also, the time that it takes to get a license has dropped by 2 years since 2009. Now, I say that with a big asterisk next to it because the time to licensure means from the time you first enroll in school until you actually physically get the license. And so that includes time to get your AXP hours and time to pass all of your exams. We've been working hard to influence the emerging professionals so that they realize that these 3 steps don't have to be done sequentially. They can overlap. And several generations of architects have gone through it sequentially, and they've been hardwired to believe that this is the only way it should work. When in reality, Contemporary studies on adult learning and adult comprehension seem to suggest that concurrent activity is a better way to learn and retain information. So in other words, working while you're also in the classroom, taking the exam while you're still acquiring experience. These overlaps actually can enrich the ability to retain information. And so pursuing things sequentially, which is why it takes so long to get a license, really needs to be a theory that is rejected and redesigned. So the more people overlap the 3 E's, the shorter the path to licensure will be. So we've contributed to that by reducing by 1/3 the hours for the experience requirement, still keeping core hours. So everyone's worried that we've made it too easy. We've still kept the core hours. We've eliminated the elective hours that weren't being used anyway. We also have eliminated one division of the exam. So now there's only 6 exams instead of 7 exams. How did we do this without sacrificing the rigor? We got rid of some outdated software programs and some approaches to examination that really weren't relevant. And we aligned the questions into 6 phases of practice. So the exam better simulates real practice as opposed to a theoretical approach. And then we took the experience program and aligned it along those same 6 areas. So for the first time in the history of NCARB, the examination and the experience requirements actually are parallel, as opposed to being 2 different programs.
That makes sense.
Yeah. We think that what we are hearing as we talk to emerging professionals, and we do this through visiting every campus of an accredited program every other year, by having very vibrant social media platforms, by doing lots of peer-to-peer outreach so that it's not just an anonymous entity in Washington talking, but actual people who've gone through the process. The emerging professionals are telling us via these platforms that they want to work for firms that are going to support them. The emerging professionals are hungry for mentorship. They want coaching. They don't want just passive signing off of hours. They want a real conversation and a real sense of mentorship when they go to work for a firm, which arguably can play toward the small firm culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually see that in our community. We do something with EntreArchitect called EntreArchitect Sessions, and they are online video conferences that we do. And one of them is called Startup Architect. And we recently reached out to Young Architect, youngarchitect.com, Mike Rosica's group, and he introduced his group to our Startup Architect sessions, and we got a bunch of people to come over. And when they were there, you can see that they're just starving for that connection.
Yes.
With experienced architects looking for some idea of what they should be doing, how they should be doing it. And Mike does a great job with Young Architect, and we're doing a good job with EntreArchitect trying to get them to come to us as well to help them be those mentors. So I see that in what you're talking about. Let's take a quick break to say thank you to our platform sponsors here at EntreArchitect: ARCAT, Freshbooks, and Revit Rocketship. For years, when I needed information on manufacturers' products, I headed straight to Google. And then I sifted through the hundreds of results to find the 1 or 2 that might be the link to the product that I'm looking for. And more often than not, that link was not what I was seeking. It was outdated or didn't meet my requirements, so I went back to the search engine and started all over. This could take all afternoon to find the 1 or the 2 or the 3 products that I needed. Does that sound familiar? Sure it does. There is a better way. ARCAT.com. Find what you're looking for in seconds. Building product information, BIM, CAD, and custom specifications using their exclusive tool, SpecWizard. And keep it all online in one place using their cloud-based project organization tool, Charrette. So make ARCAT a part of your efficient project workflow. Just type entrearchitect.com/ARCAT so they know that you came from us. Put that into your internet browser and add it to your favorites, and then visit ARCAT for every project. Find what you need fast and make more money on every project. EntreArchitect.com/ARCAT. That's EntreArchitect.com/ARCAT. Our friends at Freshbooks have been supporting us here at the EntreArchitect podcast for a long time now. They've been a platform sponsor for well over 2 years. So thank you, Freshbooks. So you've heard me talk about Freshbooks a lot here at the EntreArchitect podcast. Every episode, in fact, for quite a long time now. But did you know how Freshbooks actually was created, how it came to life? Well, it happened when their founder, Mike, accidentally saved over an invoice. And he kind of snapped. He was using Microsoft Word to bill his clients. He had studied accounting at school, but found that every accounting software on the market was built for some other business, not for him. He was frustrated. He wanted something different, something better, something that was designed for him, a self-employed professional. So he built it. Today, millions of people use FreshBooks, and on average, FreshBooks customers save about 16 hours a month. 16 hours a month. What could you do with an extra 16 hours? Getting started with FreshBooks is ridiculously easy. Most people send their first invoice seconds after starting their free trial. And the same goes for time tracking, managing expenses, collaborating with contractors, and viewing financial reports. So give FreshBooks a try. It's free for 30 days. Just visit EntreArchitect.com/FreshBooks. And then let them know that we sent you by sharing EntreArchitect in the How Did You Hear About Us section. That's EntreArchitect.com/FreshBooks to access your free, unlimited 30-day trial. Revit Rocketship is a new online course developed by our friends Alex Gore and Lance Psycho over at F9 Productions. They're the guys from the Inside the Firm podcast. Their new online course will get you up and running with Revit fast and easy. It's completely different from anything else available online. You're going to learn how to model in Revit just like it gets built. And you won't even need to start from scratch. Alex provides you with a complete, ready-to-go template to get started. It's the actual Revit template that his firm, F9 Productions, has developed over the past decade and uses today. He'll walk you through their proven method of developing a Revit model and end up with a completed set of construction drawings that you can use for your portfolio or reference when you develop your next project. Revit Rocketship is based on years of experience using the software and teaching Revit at the university level, so they know how to get you up and running fast and easy. I love that Alex and Lance are sharing their knowledge, and I want you to check out Revit Rocketship. Register today for Revit Rocketship at EntreArchitect.com/Revit. That's EntreArchitect.com/REVIT. ARCAT, FreshBooks, and Revit Rocketship. Please visit our platform sponsors today and thank them for supporting you, the EntreArchitect community.
I think that emerging professionals need people like you and Mike, because right now the community is so busy. The economy is very strong. Architects are very busy. A lot of firms are in constant hiring mode. And I hear from some practitioners that they would love to take time to coach and mentor, but the deadlines are so pressing, right. The workload is so heavy that they're not able to pay attention like they'd like to these engagements. And so having other options like what you are doing and others, I think is really essential, especially in this economy. So because candidates are now starting to complete their examination and experience requirements sooner, that should put more people into the marketplace, which could alleviate some of the investment costs that firms are paying. But if you're going to take on someone who's pursuing licensure, you have to be prepared as a small firm owner and a supervisor to help the candidates get their experience in a wide range of areas. The whole reason we have AXP and its predecessor IDP is because just a simple experience requirement, which is what used to exist, wasn't necessarily giving emerging professionals a diverse enough background to be prepared to practice architecture. They were getting pigeonholed into one or two functions for their entire, in those days, 3 years, and they weren't getting enough of a diverse exposure. So the reason the IDP was created was to make sure that experience contributes to competence. So broadening the focus and requiring these aspiring architects to check the box in a variety of categories was going to assure that they're going to have minimum competence to practice architecture, not just minimum competence to do one type of architecture. So now with the AXP, there's 95 different categories where a licensure candidate has to earn credit. And we know that not every hour is going to be AXP credit worthy. So while the hours are 3,740, the average licensure candidate takes almost 5 years to get those 3,740 hours. It isn't an automatic 3 years for 3,740 because there's other hours that get worked. People are working part-time if they're in school. And so it's really important that the supervisor is prepared to pull them through all these categories, or else the employee is going to have to leave the firm and go somewhere else where they can get that other type of experience. So we have guidance documents for supervisors and firm owners. We can coach them on how to best place their employees into a path that will get them their experience hours. And our organization is increasingly interested in creating a toolkit for supervisors because of the demand of the emerging professional community, and because we've made so many improvements to our programs. It's putting more weight on the role of the supervisor. It really, getting to the licensure path isn't just the responsibility of NCARB or the candidate or the state licensing board. It is the responsibility of the profession. They were co-equal partners with us. And so we have a course now that we can teach face-to-face or remotely on how to be a good supervisor that counts for HSW credit for continuing education. And we hope to put a version of this course online in the next year. And we think that will be an incentive for supervisors to really focus and bear down on doing their job well.
To clarify, the supervisor is the person who is working with the candidate to document those hours, correct?
Yes. And to get credit under AXP, up to half of your total hours have to be under the supervision of a U.S. licensed architect. But location doesn't matter. That U.S. licensed practitioner can be in Mississippi or they can be in Abu Dhabi. As long as they're licensed.
And there's a process, there's some of that can be done remotely as well, right? Because I have asked that question of NCARB before, and I've surprisingly got the answer. Because a lot of small firms are starting to become remote studios.
Sure.
That the team is distributed among many different studios. And so there's no office culture anymore. They're working through the internet together.
Yes.
Is there a process to earn those hours in that type of environment?
The supervisor, it's an ethics issue. The supervisor has to attest to the fact that they've reviewed the work of their employee and that work, in their opinion, as a licensed practitioner, satisfies the AXP criteria.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if they're sitting next to you in an office
Correct.
Or they're
Correct.
10 miles away in another office.
Correct.
As long as you're doing the work.
Only half of those hours have to be under the supervision of a licensed U.S. architect. Up to half of the hours can be working for a related profession like engineering or landscape architecture, or working for a foreign licensee. So the program actually is quite flexible. It acknowledges that the profession is evolving, that the profession is much more multidisciplinary than it used to be, and multi-jurisdictional. So we're trying to evolve our programs as the profession evolves. But it's something that firm owners and supervisors need to keep in mind. They've got to be able to attest to the work.
Right.
And we encourage coaching and mentoring, not just blindly signing off on hours. We know everybody gets busy, but really you're not observing your own ethics if you don't really know that person has done the work and done it in a satisfactory way.
Right. Well, I think a lot of my studio is built that way. And I think many small firms are starting to grow firms that way, going in that direction. I think many new firms that are starting that way because it's inexpensive to start that way. And so I think there are processes for our own work to get done properly. Right. I think so that supervision probably isn't a big leap to have a candidate work remotely with you, maybe as an intern or whatever they're called today,
right?
And be that supervisory person for their IDP credits or
Correct.
credits.
And let's hope that trend continues. I also wanted to share with you that our NCARB by the Numbers publication indicates that the diversity of the emerging professional community is continuing to improve in that it's becoming more diverse. Gender equity, the equity between men and women in the workforce, it's held steady for the second year in a row. And again, racial and ethnic diversity is improving along early career stages. So currently, 1 in 3 new architects are women. Women and men are equally likely to stay on the path to licensure. 1 in 5 new architects identify as a racial or ethnic minority. And 30% of candidates who complete the experience requirement, the AXP, identify as non-white, which is up 5 percentage points from the previous year. So we see when we visit college campuses that the student body is much more diverse than it was several years ago, especially in terms of gender. The challenge will be attrition. Will these underrepresented groups stay with it at the
that was my question.
At the same rate that white males stay with it? So while non-white individuals make up a larger percentage of the profession, they also drop out at a higher rate as well.
And do you have data on why, or are you just getting?
We don't. We have not interviewed those that have dropped out as to why. Our data tells us that non-white candidates are 25% more likely to fall off the licensure path. We are hopeful that some of the recent changes we made to our programs might help change that pattern. And what I mean by that is we think that frequently underrepresented groups also come from lower economic groups, and there is more pressure in terms of salaries and occupational opportunities to quickly get to a certain level of economic status. And because the path to licensure takes so long, if other opportunities come along, they may not want to stick with licensed architecture. There are other lucrative occupations coming out of architecture school that may pay more money than architecture. So keeping the passion going, which is why they went to architecture school, and turning that into a monetary realization is going to require more work on getting people through the path more quickly. And that's why, for example, we're in our 5th year of hosting an initiative called the Integrated Path to Architectural Licensure, which a school can position a student to complete all their coursework, complete all of their AXP, and take each division of the exam once before they graduate, which could result in someone right after graduation applying for a license with their local licensing board. We now have 21 schools and 25 programs in IPAL. We have over 400 students enrolled in IPAL programs across the country, and over 80 are now testing. And we had our first cohort of graduates this past spring. So it is possible to do this. It requires someone who is very grounded, very focused, very disciplined. It requires a school that will place you in a paid position in a firm. It requires the firm in turn to give you the right hours that fit the AXP requirements without a lot of coloring outside the lines. So we're trying to make sure we're available as a coach to the schools to help them do this. It's probably still a few years away before a larger cohort graduates, so where we can start studying what's the dropout rate,
right?
What are the pass rates, some of those things. This is an alternative. It's not for everybody.
It's a relatively recent introduction, right?
Recent. It's recent. It's not a shortcut. Everyone has to do the same number of exams, the same AXP requirements, and they have to graduate from a NAB accredited program. So the only thing that's different is that they're doing it in a concentrated way as opposed to a sequential way.
Right.
Then it becomes a marketplace decision. If a firm says, well, that's neat that they got their license, but I don't think they're ready, that's a hiring decision. That's not a regulatory decision because they've met the minimum qualifications from a legal perspective. So I think one of the ways to address getting underrepresented groups through the path is to get people to licensure more quickly. The other thing we've done is we've added a new alternative to get experience credit. We've noticed that a number of women in particular seem to drop out because of quote unquote life gets in the way. There's still a cultural expectation in the US that women more than men are supposed to focus on either elder care or child care or do other things, and which postpones getting their license. So they may have years of work under their belt with a firm, and then they never recorded their hours. They graduated from a school and they want to get their license. They're willing to take the exam, but they're stuck. So we created an alternative to complete the AXP for people who have hours that are older than 5 years. Instead of recording hours, because you're ineligible after 5 years to record hours, we will let you submit a portfolio of your work in lieu of recording hours. The portfolio has to be signed off by a licensed architect who maps your work to the same criteria for experience that the people who record hours have to map. So it's not necessarily easy, but it is a way to salvage those older hours without starting from scratch. You can't do a mixed version where you record hours that are less than 5 years and portfolio for more than 5. But we've received a wonderful response from a number of people around the country, particularly the Equity by Design group out in San Francisco, the work that Rosa Shang
I was going to bring that up, yep.
They're thrilled that we've created an alternative to record experience. And so it's a fairly new program. It's not easy, but we're hopeful that this signals that we're willing to acknowledge that there are multiple ways to get there.
Yeah, and I think that's the way this profession grows. Is that the main organizations that have been around for 100 years, and these new organizations like Equity by Design, like Young Architect, like EntreArchitect, and others that are coming up, where when they all start working together, like you being on my show to talk to small firms, that's how this profession grows. That's how it improves. That's how we get the numbers up.
It's an interesting conundrum with architects that architects are both tradition-bound and innovation-oriented. And sometimes those two concepts are at conflict with each other. And we see this in our own conversations with our volunteers, with our state licensing board. The majority are embracing a progressive approach to licensure, but there's a vocal group that is concerned that we're going too fast or that we're skipping steps. And so we have a lot of checks and balances in our process that tries to straddle as best we can.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I was going to see if there's anything else here to add for you in terms of.
Well, it's a very wide generational profession. We have kids coming out of school. I mean, I call them kids because they're younger than me. In their 20s, all the way up to people who are in their 80s practicing architecture. And beyond, and so it's a very broad profession, and so to get everything working for everybody has got to be a massive project.
Well, and again, because of what we do as advisory, we can try to demonstrate national consensus of where we think things should go, but then persuading an individual state licensing board to agree with us is a whole different conversation. So. Like I said, every jurisdiction uses the ARE. A handful have supplemental exams on top of the ARE, which is at their discretion. Every jurisdiction has now moved from the old 5,600-hour requirement to the 3,740, except for 4 jurisdictions. And all 4 of those are in the process of moving. It's just taken a little longer. We have 38 jurisdictions that require a degree from a NAB accredited program, but we have another 17 that do not. And so to get the NCARB certificate post-licensure, we're a Big Tent organization. We offer a certificate for those that have a NAB accredited degree, but if you don't, we have an alternative path for you to get the certificate by getting extra experience to make up the education deficiency. Most states accept this alternative, but not all of them do. So there's still a few wrinkles here and there across the country where depending on the state, and that's why we really encourage people before they pursue a license and before they pursue a reciprocal license, please study what that entry state is requiring. All of that's on our website. You go to www.ncarb.org and you go to the locator map and you click on the individual jurisdiction. It'll give you all those requirements. If you're confused, you can call our 1-800 number or write our customer relations department, and we'll provide an individual to coach or mentor you through the process.
That's great. I was just going to ask you about that, because I think when most small firm architects think of NCARB, they're thinking reciprocation.
Yes.
Architects that have been in the profession for many
Yes.
years, when that's what they think of when they think of NCARB. And many of them have gone through the process of reciprocation and have hit walls. It's taken a long time, and they complain and they blame NCARB for that.
Right.
And so I know that you've been doing things to expedite that process.
Yes.
And that's one of them, is to be able to go to the locator. You have coaching if you need it.
Right.
Are there anything else that sort of helps that process of reciprocity happen quicker and more efficient?
Well, I'm very proud of how much we've borne down on efficiency in our customer relations function. We've gone through a second business process reengineering initiative to reallocate resources so that we are better focused on speed and accuracy. As our more mature architects know, everything used to be done by paper. Things could take months. Sometimes things got lost in the mail. Everything now, of course, is digitized and done electronically. Interestingly, with the robust economy, we are finding older architects that we haven't heard from in decades coming back now and either wanting to reactivate their certificate or get a certificate for the first time. So in those cases, those records are so old that we have to retrieve them and digitize them and update them. So that sometimes takes a little bit longer. But the average transmittal, if you request today a reciprocal license in another jurisdiction, that can usually be accomplished in less than a week. And it used to take months.
That's good to know.
Everyone after a certain age has a NCARB horror story to tell, and we hope that those stories are becoming more few and far between. We've also incentivized the value of having an NCARB certificate. NCARB certificate holders now have free access to online continuing education credits that count for HSW, and that's through our monograph program and our mini monograph program. We are adding new monographs every month, and so a lot of architects, as they reach the end of the year and they are short a few CE credits, are getting there by going online and taking advantage as a certificate holder of these free monographs. And we are increasingly confident that the new tools we are creating are going to make waiting almost passe for a lot of our programs. In fact, as a parallel example, the new exam, you now get instant test scores at the test center before you leave. They are unofficial because they have to be validated and transmitted to the jurisdiction. But with the advent of the new software programs and the new exam, there's no delay in grading now. So that's been a big change too.
Yeah.
So,
and that could be good or bad.
Well, exactly. Well, you get to choose before they show you the score whether you want to know.
Right. Yeah.
We assume most people would want to know, because the other thing we've changed is that the waiting period is now 60 days instead of 6 months. So you can retake an exam 60 days after you get your failure notice. So that's changed as well. So this also should squeeze down the time it takes to get a license.
Yeah.
But you know, again, we are always open to feedback, and we want to hear from everybody. If something hasn't worked for them or something isn't making sense, we don't want people to think of us as unavailable or unreachable.
And the website has all that information to contact you.
It does. It does.
We'll put it on the show notes.
Yeah,
I know it's on the website.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you came and spent some time with me, because I think that it's sort of a state of the profession in terms of the NCARB by the numbers, and you've given us a nice state of NCARB as well to understand who you are, what you do, and the advancements in it, because I think many architects have an opinion of NCARB based on things decades old. And it's a different world we're all living in, and certainly NCARB is a very different NCARB than it was 10 years ago. So,
well, I would add one more thing. We have something newer, which is we have mutual recognition agreements with Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. If you have a license in the U.S., in a jurisdiction that has signed the mutual recognition agreement, You can have 1 year of practice in your home country and you can practice in Canada, 3 years of practice in your home country, and you can practice in Australia and New Zealand. We also have a tri-national agreement with Canada, US, and Mexico that is a longer process, but does facilitate mobility between the 3 countries. So we're also looking at international opportunities for US architects.
Yeah, the world is getting smaller every
Yes.
time we look at it. Michael, I appreciate you coming by. Before we wrap up here, what is one thing that a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow?
I think demonstrating a commitment to excellence through mentoring and coaching and ethical practice is really, really important. I think we're in an era now where everyone is talking about ethics, and certainly that's happening in the architecture profession. It relates to gender equity. It relates to how one treats the emerging professional. It relates to how one treats clients. Modeling that behavior, we think that mentoring the next generation is just as much an ethical issue as how you treat a client. And we think that's a wonderful thing to focus on.
Yeah, excellent answer. NCARB.org is where you want to go to check out everything that NCARB is doing. Specifically for the report, it's NCARB.org/NBTN. So NCARB by the numbers, NBTN 2018. And we'll have that link on the show notes as well. This is episode 248. So EntreArchitect.com/episode 248 will get you there. Michael, I appreciate you for taking the time to come and speak with me and for sharing your knowledge here at EntreArchitect Podcast. So what do you think about that? I want to know what you think. You can post your comments over at the show notes at EntreArchitect.com/episode 249, or head over to the EntreArchitect community on Facebook. It's our private Facebook group, EntreArchitect.com/group to get inside there. That's a private group. You should be in there if you're not in there. EntreArchitect.com/group, and share your thoughts over there about NCARB. I would love to know what you think about what Michael and I discussed today. So post it in the comments or over at the group. And EntreArchitect membership. I would love for you to come join us because we're having a great time over there. We're learning every month with live EntreArchitect Masterclass expert training sessions. All our resources are in there for free for members. We have a member forum on Slack. We have everything you need to build a better business. I want you in there. Do it right now. Go check it out. You can actually join for free for 30 days. You can go in, check it out, look at all the resources, whatever you need. Go check it out. EntreArchitect.com, free for 30 days. Check it out. EntreArchitect.com. My name is Mark R. LePage, and I am an entrepreneur architect, and I encourage you to go build a better business so you can be a better architect. Love, learn, and share. Those are the 3 rules every day. Post them on your wall. That's what you need to do to make the world a better place. Love, learn, share. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds. Get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark Arlepage, founder of EntreArchitect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.